People were scared, wanting to know what they were seeing in the sky, since suddenly, above Tokyo, the inverted castle appeared, and simultaneously, dungeons manifested all over Japan, and people awakened mana. With that, those particularly blessed with talent, such as mages, challenged the dungeons and gained wealth and fame. The talent of a mage is judged by the color of their mana. Normally, they show aptitude for a single color, but rarely bearers of two colors appear. For example, the younger brother of the MC, and this guy called Kurosaki Kai, is a bearer of two colors, blue and red, and at the moment, he is facing a demonic creature that then begins to unleash its power, and Kurosaki Kai gets excited realizing that the demon will not run away. Thus, the creature charges at the mage, who in turn activates his demonic spear skill and throws it at the demon, which, having no way to dodge, is hit directly. After the beast falls to the ground, Kurosaki Kai goes to the monster and picks up the drop it left. Meanwhile, someone is standing in a corner lost in thought, and Kai throws the drop on his head and asks him to be more attentive. As he approaches, he tells the guy to pick up the drop quickly. Kurosaki Kai is also called the Purple King and is at level 89, being one of the strongest mages. Meanwhile, the guy who is with the mage thinks that he, the older brother of the Purple King, is an incompetent without aptitude, being a complete colorless, something rare in the world they live in. Kurosaki Rei, level 1. But he knew that even so, he could not give up on becoming a mage, and that was why he had to work as a porter, since he had in mind that thanks to his brother's pity in his group, he was clinging to the naive thought that maybe, someday, he would awaken an ability. So he knew that believing in that thread of hope, he accompanied his younger brother into the dungeons. And, as they explored the dungeon they were in, they arrived at a huge door. The other people in the group commented that they had finally reached the boss room, and that they thought, the way things were going, the boss should be easy. As soon as they passed through the door, they quickly began to observe their surroundings and soon noticed a being ahead. It was Kronos, the god of time and space, of unknown level. Kai, without paying any attention, got excited saying that the boss did not seem like much, then prepared his Demoni Mortis skill and then launched it at the boss, who in turn took something from a subspace and easily, with the sword he picked up, managed to completely repel the Purple King's attack. And worse, Kronos did not show any reaction when doing this, which left Kai very frightened, not understanding how his attack was so easily repelled. Then, Kronos releases an intense pressure with his gaze, and Kai feels this incredible pressure and is terrified. Unable to do anything, he is hit directly by an attack from the boss. His friends, at the same time, are horrified to realize that the incredible Purple King was easily defeated by a single attack. Rei, seeing his younger brother being eliminated, begins to panic, trying to understand what is happening. Then, he looks back and, observing Kronos, questions whether the Purple King was really defeated. The others start running from the boss room in great fear, but they are also attacked and eliminated. Kurosaki Rei falls to the ground, unable to believe what he is witnessing. Kronos calls out to the MC, laughs, and wants to know if he is not a complete colorless. Rei clenches his fist tightly and thinks that it is not over yet because he has achieved nothing. Then he grabs his sword, and while standing up trembling all over, he thinks that he still cannot die. Kronos, with his overwhelming presence, comments that he found it very interesting that a nobody dared to face him, even being a colorless. Rei tries to remain calm and keeps thinking that he cannot give up there. However, the boss does not care and prepares his attacks. Then he comments that he will perform a test, but without giving the MC time, he strikes him with a powerful attack. Rei cannot believe that he has already been severely struck and cannot do anything, but the boss, in the blink of an eye, ends up eliminating him as well. However, he comments that he thinks he went a little too far. Then he uses his rewind skill, which makes the MC return intact before being eliminated. Rei does not understand and questions whether he was healed or something like that. The boss prepares his firepower and quickly launches his Flames of Despair skill. Rei faces a huge wave of flames coming his way, and while trying to do something, Kronos comments that this time he will give him some time to think. Then, he starts laughing and wanting to know what the boy will do. The MC looks back and sees a sword, and thinks that he knows mediocre attacks will not work. but that he believes the sword that the boss himself created could have an effect. Thus, he runs to it, grabs it, and prepares for the impact of the Flames of Despair skill. With this, Rei realizes that the blade of the sword can dissipate the flames, so he charges at Kronos. However, while advancing, his body begins to be burned by the intense heat of the flames. Rei tries to resist the pain. The boss just watches from afar until he is surprised by something. It is the MC driving the sword deep into the boss's chest. Rei, with much of his body burning, thinks he struck Kronos directly with his attack, but he, in turn, laughs and activates his rewind skill again. Rei is frightened to realize that he has returned to before striking his attack on the boss. While his wound is healed, Kronos comments to the MC that it was fine entertainment. Rei drops the sword on the ground, falls to his knees, and as he begins to panic, he thinks that everything he did was absolutely useless. Then he questions whether this is how he will be eliminated, until out of nowhere, he is very surprised by a system screen right in front of him, warning that the presence of a god of time and space has been confirmed, and the seal of the black skill is released. Kronos notices something strange, but the system continues warning the MC that the extra skill, Steel skill, has been acquired, and that the rewind skill of the boss, Kronos, has been stolen. Rei cannot believe the warnings and skills of his system, while the boss begins to suspect something, but without thinking twice, the MC uses the stolen rewind skill. With this, he manages to break the space and time he is in, and the boss becomes furious and shouts, calling the MC an insolent brat and wanting to know how a mere human dares to steal his skill. Then the system warns that regression will be executed. Thus, time begins to regress, and Kurosaki Rei is thrown back to some time of his choice. As soon as he awakens in a bed, he thinks that he desperately used the rewind skill, but questions what really happened. Then he sees his own reflection in the mirror and finds something strange, and as he approaches, he observes himself and, very surprised, questions whether it is his younger version. Then he wonders if it could have been a dream, until he looks outside through the window and, seeing the inverted castle in the sky, questions whether it is still white, since he knows that the previous night the inverted castle was dark, because he has in mind that the castle was completely white until 7 years ago, but was gradually stained by darkness, and that when it was completely dyed by darkness, the door of the inverted castle opened, and through the door was the god of time and space. Thus, Rei begins to understand. Then he remembers that in the fight with Kronos, he stole the rewind skill from him. Then, he takes his phone and as soon as he sees the date, concludes that it is as he had thought, and looking at his reflection in the mirror, thinks that he has gone back 7 years, for he rewound to the past. Rei calls for his skill window, and as soon as he sees the list, it contains only one, being Steel skill, but he knows that the rewind skill is no longer there. However, still excited, he knows that at least his Steel skill remains. The MC also has in mind that for 10 years, he never managed to gain a single skill, but at the moment, he knows that if he has this skill, everything will be different until a message arrives, and as soon as he sees it, he becomes a little apprehensive since he has regressed to the day of the mage exam. In the municipality of Chiyoda, in front of Tokyo Station, headquarters of the Mage Association, Rei has in mind that this is the national agency that supervises the mages who carry out missions in dungeons. And as soon as he enters it, looking around, he realizes that the agency looks brand new, since there is a 7-year difference. And so he thinks it makes perfect sense, until someone approaches calling him colorless and wanting to know what he is doing there. They are Oik and Goto. Rei thinks that he knows these guys are his brother's lackeys. Goto hugs the MC and asks if he is going to take the exam again, while Oik makes it clear that no matter how many times the MC takes that test, a colorless will always be a nobody. Rei thinks they are right, since he knows this is not the first time he has taken the mage exam, and as he was unable to give up on becoming a mage, he kept taking the exam again and again, even knowing it might be useless. Thus, he forcefully removes Goto's hand and asks them to stop bothering him, and as soon as he walks away, Oik wants to know how a mere colorless is ignoring them like that, while Goto wants to know what has gotten into the MC. Elsewhere, the exam inspector and rank B mage, Hina Reina, is analyzing some papers, and as soon as she sees a certain person, she wants to know if he is there again. Then she takes a deep breath and makes it clear to the MC that even if it is just an exam, she thinks he may end up dying one day. Ray laughs and comments that this time everything will work out. As soon as they enter the exam site, the inspector wants to know if he really will not want her to explain the details. He keeps looking at the portal entrance and replies yes. As soon as he passes through it, he thinks that he needs to collect 3 magic stones from goblins to pass, and that normally, for someone who has awakened an ability, it would be a piece of cake. Then, he thinks this will end once and for all. It does not take long for a sinister creature to begin to approach. Ray reflects that, with an incident that also happened in the future, he knows that the appearance of a monster that should not be in a level 1 dungeon, since he is facing a Red Hood goblin of level 37. Hinata cannot believe it, and screams wanting to know why a level 37 monster would be there. Thus, she equips her sword and, while charging at the creature, yells for the MC to run. Frightened, Ray thinks not, because the level difference is far too great, since he has in mind that in the world before rewinding, Inspector Hinata could not win against the Red Hood. Thus, she begins to have difficulty defending the creature's attacks, and, as soon as she realizes she cannot continue defending, she becomes frightened. Soon, the Red Hood goblin manages to break her defense and throws her far away. Ray keeps thinking that before, she fought to buy time for him to escape, and that, because of this, she was so injured she had to retire as a mage. Thus, Ray thinks it was his fault, that because of his own incompetence, Inspector Hinata's career was ruined. However, he becomes serious, and, while the Red Hood comes his way, prepares himself, and thinks that this time will be different. Then, he throws his dagger and thinks that he knows that the Red Hood goblin has a skill that increases physical capacity, and as soon as the creature blocks his attack, he thinks it is because it is so strong that ordinary attacks have no effect. Thus, he jumps and delivers a punch right in the middle of the Red Hood's face. Then, he hopes it worked, but the creature becomes even more furious and prepares its attack. However, the Red Hood feels something strange and becomes confused, trying to understand what happened. At that moment, a system notification appears, informing the MC that he has stolen the body enhancement skill from the Red Hood, and that now his physical capacity has increased. Then he observes the Red Hood, and right after strikes it, and as soon as he eliminates it, he comments that now that he has stolen its skill, he thinks it is nothing more than a worthless piece of meat. The inspector, seeing this, is perplexed and questions how the MC managed to defeat a Red Hood with a single blow. Ray takes a deep breath and thinks that, as expected, his ability to steal other abilities is truly an incredible power. Hinata goes to him, calls him, and asks how he managed to do that. He feels very embarrassed and thinks that for now, it is better not to mention anything about his black abilities. So he replies that it was just a coincidence, which makes the inspector furious, asking him to stop lying. However, she changes the subject and comments that since irregulars have emerged, she thinks it is better for the exam to be canceled because she needs to report this to the agency. Until the MC turns as he notices something on the ground, and, while picking up a drop left by the Red Hood, he knows that it is not yet the time for irregulars to appear, but he comments to Hinata that he still needs 2 more mana stones. She immediately turns and, furious, yells that now is not the time to think about something like that. However, something begins to approach slowly, and as soon as Ray turns to see what it is, he sees some goblins and thinks it was just at the time he needed it most. The creatures do not care and charge forward, but before they can launch any attack, they are completely eliminated in a single blow. Hinata is once again surprised. Ray picks up the dropped mana stones and asks the inspector if he can keep them. She does not know what to answer. Later, at the entrance of the main headquarters of the Mage Association, Inspector Hinata hands the mage license to the MC, and, as soon as he takes it in his hand, he keeps observing. Then he begins to think that it took a long time for this moment to arrive, since he knows he was not capable of giving up on his dream of becoming a mage. He also knows that he was just a porter for 10 long years, but now he thinks he has finally become a mage, until he hears Hinata asking him to see the details about exchanging the mana stones. Ray has in mind that mana stones drop from monsters, and that they are also a valuable source of energy that does not emit carbon dioxide, and that they can also be sold to the association. As soon as he observes the details, Ray thinks that since he defeated a rank A monster, he knows this would be a generous source of profit. However, upon realizing the value he is earning for defeating the Red Hood, he widens his eyes and shouts, wanting to know if he will really receive 3 million won. Hinata replies yes, because after all, he defeated a Red Hood. Ray, still in disbelief, comments that he had no idea that mages earned such a huge amount of money. The inspector laughs and makes it clear that if it is him, she thinks he will receive even more soon. While she keeps laughing, the MC remembers something and comments that he has a request to make. After going to a reserved place and before a portal, Ray raises his hand and sees that the place is indeed reserved for him. Then he thinks that until now, he could not even dream of entering a solo dungeon. Then he remembers the inspector hospitalized after facing the Red Hood before rewinding, and that now she is safe and sound. Thus, he is glad and thinks that now he can change the future. Until, out of nowhere, someone uses a mana hand skill and grabs the MC. Someone approaches wanting to know what Ray thinks he is doing there. They are Godo and Oik, who want to know how a colorless like the MC thinks he has the guts to face a solo dungeon, and if by any chance he knows that this is against the rules. Ray says that he passed the mage exam and that therefore he has permission to enter a solo dungeon. Goto does not like hearing this at all and asks the MC to stop talking nonsense. Oik, however, grabs Ray's head and, furious, demands that he show his abilities then. Ray, while channeling his power, thinks that Oik's ability is one that compresses mana into physical form, being the mana hand, and that is why he knows that the extreme body enhancement he stole from the Red Hood will not be enough to get rid of it. However, he thinks of something, plants his foot firmly on the ground, and jumps, headbutting Oik right in the face, injuring his nose badly. Then the system informs that the MC managed to steal the mana hand ability, and that, because of this, the enemy's mana hand was deactivated. While the magic is dissipated, both Oik and Goto keep trying to understand what the hell is happening. Without hesitation, Ray activates his stolen mana hand technique and grabs Oik with full force. He begins to sweat cold and in disbelief asks the MC if he really awakened abilities. Goto takes advantage of Ray being occupied and charges forward, saying that he should not think of getting excited over so little, and as he approaches, he prepares his fireball. Ray activates his extreme body enhancement ability and completely dissipates Goto's fireball attack. He cannot believe that his attack was so easily dissipated. The MC takes advantage of the opening and charges with full force, landing a punch on Goto and throwing him hard against the wall. Oik is even more surprised to see that the MC also obtained body enhancement. Thus, the two keep watching Ray unleashing his incredible power and ask if he could really be a two-colored mage. The MC takes a deep breath and replies no, and, while channeling a new power into his hand, the system notifies that he has stolen Goto's fireball ability. With that, Ray, while holding his fireball, makes it clear to both of them that they forgot to mention one more ability. Goto cannot believe that the MC apparently possesses a third color, as he has never heard of such a thing. Ray prepares his attack and then launches it at his opponent, who has to jump to the side to avoid being hit. At that moment, Oik realizes that the mana hand skill that was restraining him has been undone. The MC, while preparing his fireball skill again, wants to know if they still want to continue the fight. Oik and Goto look at each other for a brief moment and then run away, screaming and begging the MC to forgive them. Ray breathes a sigh of relief and thinks that if his brother finds out about this, it will not end well, as he has always been treated like his brother's little dog. Then he thinks that if Kai discovers that he awakened a skill, he will surely come after him, especially since his brother has already reached level 50, making him one of the strongest of the modern era. However, he also knows that Kai is not the only one he needs to be careful with, as soon a certain dungeon will be unlocked. Thus, he stands before the dungeon entrance and concludes that for now, he needs to raise his level by any means possible. And as he enters the portal, he thinks that he knows that level is the basis of strength, and that leveling up allows one to learn skills and increase mana capacity. However, he reflects that more important than that is the amount of mana one can control. Then, out of nowhere, an explosion happens right in front of him, and a level 38 Flame Mage appears. Ray, while preparing his fireball, knows he can barely control it. The Flame Mage prepares his skill, and the MC thinks that the difference in level makes a huge impact even when it comes to the same technique. Without giving Ray time to think of a strategy, the Flame Mage launches his fireballs. Ray also attacks, and some of the attacks collide, but others head toward him, so he jumps to avoid being hit, and as soon as he positions himself, he thinks that he cannot win in a head-on fight. But something comes to his mind, and then he jumps, and while going toward the Flame Mage, he thinks that no matter how high his level is, there is one thing that never changes, which is that after someone uses a skill, there will always be an opening. Therefore, he uses body reinforcement and thinks that he will only have 2 seconds, since his opponent will be defenseless. With that, he delivers a powerful punch right in the Flame Mage's face and sends him flying far away. The system notifies the MC that he has successfully stolen the fireball skill. As soon as the Flame Mage hits the ground, he quickly stands up and tries to prepare his skill again, but becomes confused when he realizes he cannot use it. Ray, while preparing his skill, thinks that he knows that once he steals an opponent's skill, they cannot use it for a brief moment and become less intimidating. Thus, without wasting time, he unleashes his new fireball skill on the creature, and it is engulfed in a powerful wave of flames. Ray looks to the side and sees more notifications from his system, informing him that he has leveled up 4 times. He then concludes that defeating monsters at a higher level than his own grants more experience, but normally defeating stronger monsters is a difficult task. With skill stealing, he believes everything will become easier. Then the system notifies him that the MC has advanced to level 12. Ray clenches his fist tightly and, looking at a passage, thinks that for now he will focus on reaching level 30. Thus, he begins battling monsters, going from one to another and always leveling up until he pauses for a moment and thinks that he has managed to level up at an incredible speed. However, he is still at level 27. Then he thinks that this was already expected, as leveling up gradually becomes more difficult, and if he wants to reach level 30, he knows he must defeat higher level monsters. After some time walking through the dungeon, Ray reaches the deepest part and stands before the boss room entrance. With that, he thinks that the boss in front of him is the perfect opponent for this. As soon as he opens the door and enters, he sees the boss waiting for him. It is the level 45 skeleton demon along with its level 30 imps. Ray gets ready for battle and thinks that all the monsters are higher level and that if he steals their techniques, he might have a chance to win. Not wanting to waste time, he immediately charges at the boss, jumps, and prepares his punch with body reinforcement. But as soon as he strikes, the boss blocks the attack with a barrier. Ray is very surprised and quickly jumps back. Then he thinks that this was already expected because it will not be easy to get close to the boss, since he knows that mana barrier is in the way and that using skill stealing will be useless. However, the skeleton demon becomes furious, lets out a piercing roar, and with incredible speed gets very close to the MC, who in turn has to dodge at the last moment from the creature's attack. He then thinks that he will have no choice but to use what he is thinking. Ray notices that the imps are coming at him as well, so he jumps and delivers a punch to one of them. With that, he activates skill stealing and steals Ice Stake. Ray prepares his fireball and launches it at another imp, and as soon as he sees another coming his way, he prepares the Ice Stake and throws it, completely impaling the imp. Ray lands back on the ground, but the skeleton demon uses his skill and summons more imps. Ray thinks that the boss will summon these creatures whenever he wants, and, while seeing one of them coming toward him, thinks that normally this would be quite problematic, but he knows it will be very convenient, so he confidently charges forward and eliminates the imp. With that, the system notifies him that he leveled up to 28. Ray has in mind that if the boss keeps doing this, he will have an infinite source of experience, until he notices another notification from his system, informing him that the MC's mana mastery has reached the required point, and because of this, the synthesis skill has been unlocked. At this moment, the skeleton demon loses his composure and starts screaming loudly. Ray prepares his Ice Stake again along with his fireball, and then activates his synthesis skill and begins to fuse the two skills. Then he jumps and goes all out at the boss while using the Fire Spear skill. The skeleton demon uses the mana barrier, resulting in a powerful clash between the two skills. but the boss's mana barrier begins to crack, and soon after the MC manages to break it. He then uses his body enhancement skill and delivers a powerful punch right to the skeleton demon's face. While the boss is dazed from the blow, Ray thinks that the enhancements protecting the boss are gone, and without thinking twice delivers his fire spear strike, completely burning the boss, who then drops a mana stone, and the system notifies that the MC leveled up several times, reaching level 33. Ray breathes a sigh of relief and thinks about his synthesis skill, which is an advanced technique that combines skills to create even stronger ones, and that it becomes usable around level 30. Thus, after picking up the drop left by the boss, he sits on the ground and thinks that he had his doubts about whether he could defeat his opponent, so he feels very relieved thinking that in the end everything worked out, until he is surprised to see a system notification informing him that the required level was reached and that the limit of skills acquired through skill stealing increased, and now the available skill slots have increased to 5. Ray is happy thinking that now things will become even more convenient. After some time, as soon as he leaves the dungeon and returns to the agency entrance, he hands in the mana stone he obtained. Hinata is very impressed and shouts, wanting to know if the MC really managed to defeat the skeleton demon alone, and is even more surprised to learn that Ray is already at level 33 in just one day. He becomes embarrassed and comments that he thinks it was just a matter of luck. Hinata becomes a little suspicious and comments that leveling past 30 in a single day, that so-called luck he is talking about, is a little beyond the existential plane they live in. Ray just gives an awkward laugh. The inspector also emphasizes that with his current level, he can become a rank B mage without delay, until Kurosaki Kai arrives and is surprised to see his brother there. Then, arrogantly, he wants to know if his brother is really a rank B, because he does not think a mere little dog could achieve such a feat. Ray does not like hearing this from his brother at all. Then Kai tells the inspector that Ray is not capable of using a single skill since he is a complete colorless. Therefore, he wants to know if she is really saying that his brother is now a rank B. Hinata replies no, but says that Ray was able to defeat a red hood and the skeleton demon alone. Kai does not like hearing this very much, and soon gives his brother a nasty look. With a sinister gaze, he wants to know if it is really true. Then he prepares his powerful punch, and an explosion happens at the agency entrance, leaving the people around very frightened. Kai's punch was blocked by his brother's mana barrier, who in turn laughs and tells him he needs to be more careful. Hinata shouts to get Kai's attention and tells him to stop causing trouble. He, in turn, tells Ray that it seems real that he has awakened his skills. The MC replies that yes, and Kai makes it clear that just because he has a skill does not mean his brother can get all excited. Then Kai begins channeling his power and emphasizes that he will see for himself if his brother is really capable. Hinata becomes worried and shouts, wanting to know if Mr. Kurosaki is really planning a fight there. Kai says that if his incompetent brother had reached rank B on his own merit, that would not be a problem. Therefore, he asks Ray if his skills to reach rank B were lies. The MC clenches his fist tightly and thinks that even if he refuses his brother's requests, it will only delay the problem. So he fills himself with confidence and says that he already understands. Kai does not like his brother's attitude and calls him a damn insolent. With that, they go to an arena at the Mage Association Agency, and Ray thinks that when fighting someone stronger, you always need to be cautious of the difference in mana that can be controlled. Kai gets ready for the fight with his brother, and Ray keeps thinking that he cannot let his guard down even for a moment, since he knows that with his level 30, his combo is limited to 3 basic skills. But he knows that Kai is level 50, and his combo capacity must be around 5 skills. So basically, it would be a certain defeat if he only relied on those numbers, and that is precisely why he knows he must reduce that gap somehow. Therefore, he decides to deliver the first strike with his ice stake. Kai wastes no time and prepares his fireballs, and both launch their skills, which collide, and an explosion happens right in the middle of the arena. Kai waits for the dust to settle, but ends up very surprised since he sees his brother coming at him with the body enhancement skill. Then he comments that judging by the yellow color enhancement skill, his brother can only be a 2-color wielder. Ray figures that after his brother's 4th skill, he must have enough mana left for only 1 more, so he prepares his skill synthesis, creates the fire spear, and charges at Kai, who in turn observes his brother's skill and comments about a skill that combines the blue and red colors, and that in the end, Rei might be a 3-color mage. However, he gives a sinister smile and launches his fireball skill at his brother, slamming him hard into the ground. Rei is frightened and questions how his synthesized fire spear of 2 skills lost to a basic skill. Kai, seeing his brother able to use 3-color skills, comments that now he understands why his brother was so excited, but makes it clear that he is on a very different level compared to him. Then he prepares his fireball again and shouts, telling Rei to start dancing. Therefore, he launches several fireballs at him, who in turn has to run to the side to avoid being hit by the fireballs. But while running, he prepares his fire spear again and throws it. Kai prepares his fireball and launches it against his brother's skill. His fireball manages to neutralize Rei's and goes straight at him. The MC is forced to quickly use his mana barrier, but Kai's fireball is stronger and manages to break the barrier, throwing Rei hard to the ground. Kai just laughs, seeing that his brother is having difficulties, while Rei starts to get nervous, until Kai makes a sign with his finger asking his brother to bow his head, as that way he could forgive what he did. Then he shouts, ordering Rei to ask to be forgiven for being so showy. The MC, sweating cold, thinks that he cannot defeat his brother with his skills and limited mana capacity, and remembering how it was before, thinks that it is better to give up and questions if he will really continue living his life as his brother's dog, until he stands up and, full of confidence, shouts, saying that he will not do it. Kai says he understands, and that it seems his brother wants to learn the hard way, and that because of that, he thinks he has no choice. Therefore, he uses Overclock on his fireball skill, which makes the user consume a large amount of mana to temporarily double his mana control capacity. With that, he creates several fireballs simultaneously and makes it clear to his brother that this is the power of a king, being a combo of 10 attacks. Rei is very scared, thinking that this is the strength that allows Kai to be so strong, and that he also knows he can use an absurd amount of mana compared to other kings temporarily. However, he shouts, warning Kai that he was actually waiting for him to use this skill, then charges at his brother, thinking that 10 consecutive skills can only be performed in the world by Kai through Overclock. As he gets closer, he jumps high and Kai laughs, calls Rei an idiot, and asks if he thinks he can dodge in midair. Then he launches his fireballs, but Rei activates his mana hand technique and throws it, embedding it into the ground. Kai cannot believe that his brother used another skill, while the MC thinks that even if they are 10 consecutive attacks, it will be worthless if he can dodge, but that still his brother is limited by cooldown even if he is a king. Thus, he takes advantage of his mana hand being stuck in the ground and pulls himself to Kai's back. With that, he quickly turns around, plants his foot firmly on the ground, and, while landing a punch right in the middle of his brother's face, thinks that in that moment, he knows Kai is completely defenseless. Because of the punch he took, Kai is thrown hard to the ground. With that, the system notifies that the MC stole the Overclock skill. Rei thinks that now that he stole his brother's strongest skill, there is nowhere for him to run. Kai tries to stand up and shout, calling his brother an idiot. Rei is a little surprised and questions if he will really continue fighting. Kai becomes enraged with his brother and makes it clear that he will eliminate him, then creates his ice stake, combines it with the flames of the fireball, and creates his demonic spear skill. Rei cannot believe it, thinking that it is the strongest purple skill, and questions if his brother has already learned such a technique at this point. But he knows he has no time to think about it since a powerful attack is coming his way. So he jumps to the side at the last second, but Kai does not care and prepares 2 more demonic spears. Rei, seeing this, thinks that he landed a hit because his brother underestimated him, but as soon as the Purple King gets serious, he knows that his brother becomes something beyond his reach. Thus, he has to quickly jump back to avoid being brutally hit by the demonic spear skill, but he does not realize that he has reached the edge of the arena and is cornered against the wall. Kai makes it clear to his brother that he has not reached his limit yet, and asks if Rei knew that. The MC, seeing himself without an escape, uses his fire spear skill, just as Kai throws his demonic spear. And as the attacks collide, a huge explosion happens, but due to the strong impact of the skill explosion, Rei is thrown hard against the wall that was behind him. The MC tries to stay on his feet, but Kai says that this is why he is called the Purple King, proof that he is the strongest. Rei breathes heavily and thinks that his brother is right, since he knows that the demonic spear is one of the strongest. Kai asks his brother not to be so boastful just because he can use several skills. Hearing this gives the MC an idea, who, looking at his hand, knows that at the moment he does not compare to his brother, but he clenches his fist tightly and questions himself about finding the potential of purple skills. Then he keeps watching Kai from afar and thinks that until now, he was limited to synthesizing only 2 colors of skills because of his mana capacity. With that, he decides to test something and activates Overclock, the skill stolen from his brother. Kai cannot believe it, seeing Rei using his technique and questions if this is really possible. The MC, while seeing a system screen appear in front of him, thinks that now his mana capacity has doubled. The system notifies that the MC's mana capacity has been increased due to the activation effect of Overclock, and the Black Synthesis skill has been unlocked. Rei becomes excited to know that he unlocked a new skill at the moment he needed it most. Kai, while preparing his fireball, keeps watching his brother and wonders what he is planning. Rei keeps watching the power flow into his hand, as he has in mind that this is the 3-color synthesis that no one has ever achieved before. Thus, he begins to merge the red skill with the blue, and finally the yellow skill, forming a new dark power, the Abyssal Flame. Kai cannot believe he is seeing a black mana power. Rei thinks that the basic mana colors are blue, red, and yellow, and that he always heard from people that he was not suited for any of these 3 colors, but he knows that was not the case since he already consumed this mana. Then he knows he is a Black Mage. Kai becomes worried, and while launching, his skill asks his brother to stay away, but Rei does not care and goes against the skill until he realizes the right moment to make a move and completely dissipates his brother's attack with his skill. And, while charging at Kai, he keeps shouting that it is impossible. Rei keeps advancing, and Kai becomes even more worried and creates his skill again. But before he could throw it, Rei is very close, prepares his Abyssal Flame attack, and as soon as both skills collide, Kai cannot believe his skill was useless, and an explosion happens. Rei waits for the dust to settle, and as soon as it clears, he sees his brother fallen on the ground. Very exhausted, he falls to his knees and thinks that he finally managed to defeat him, until he sees a system notification informing him that the Abyssal Flame skill was obtained through Black Synthesis. Rei keeps thinking about its tremendous power until Inspector Hinata opens the arena room door and immediately wants to know if Rei is okay. A little embarrassed, he replies yes, but very surprised she wants to know what skill he just used. Rei thinks that it was already expected that he could no longer hide his situation, so he extends his hand, and as he channels his new power, he comments that he thinks it seems to be a black skill. Hinata is very surprised and then says that she thinks that if it is true, it could be the first in the world. Rei wants to know if he will be obliged to report to the association about the black skill, as he wanted, if possible, to keep this power a secret. Hinata becomes confused with Rei's request, but emphasizes that this would be the same as losing a great opportunity. Rei also does not understand and asks her to be clearer. Hinata says that the strongest mage of each color receives the title of king, but that, in short, since the MC is the only black mage in the world, he would be considered the Black King. Rei keeps thinking about it, but ends up saying that for now, he thinks he is not interested in that, and thinks that it is not as if his level would suddenly rise just by becoming king, until he looks to the side, and seeing his brother defeated on the ground, wants to know if he will be okay. Hinata says that he is a king, and therefore will recover soon, even with all the injuries. But she makes it clear that even so, she will take him to the medical wing, until both their phones receive a message, and Rei cannot believe what he is seeing, as it is an alert of a dungeon that appeared at the west entrance of Ikebukuro Park, and the recommended level is 70. Hinata cannot believe it either, but Rei knows the time has come because he has in mind that it is the Ikebukuro dungeon, and its recommended level is 70, and that even though most kings are around level 50, in the first week they realized how weak they were, and as a result, the Ikebukuro dungeon was abandoned. However, this was the starting point of a tragedy since the dungeon break occurred. Rei knows that at that time something like that was still unknown, and that if a dungeon is not conquered within a certain time, the monsters will come out of the portal. With that, the Ikebukuro dungeon was the first recorded break, and because of that, the city of Tokyo became filled with monsters. Many people lost their lives. Rei knows he cannot allow that tragedy to repeat, and that he needs to stop the dungeon collapse somehow. So he tells Hinata that he will conquer the Ikebukuro dungeon. She is very surprised and says that even if it is him, it is still dangerous. Then she explains that only mages of at least rank A are allowed to enter a dungeon with a recommended level above 50. Rei thinks he is lucky because there is still some time before the dungeon collapses. So he wants to know if the next rank A exam is next week. Hinata, a little intrigued, replies that yes. Therefore, the MC says that he will reach rank A in time for the exam. Hinata is surprised and says that it makes sense, because with his skills, she thinks he would have no problem passing the exam. Rei wants to know if there will be any problem. Hinata explains that to take a promotion exam for rank A, it is necessary to clear a rank B dungeon in a group first, and that in other words, the MC will need to find a group in 1 week and clear a rank B dungeon. After that, some time passes, and the MC is devastated with no hope at all, since he completely forgot what Inspector Hinata had said about him having to form a group. And as soon as he clicks on the messages on his phone, he sees several people wanting to know why they would join him, a complete colorless. Then he thinks that apparently news about being colorless has already spread. He also knows that he has 1 week to explore an unexplored rank B dungeon, and that he thinks it will most likely be difficult to clear it alone. Therefore, he takes a deep breath and questions what he will do, until he hears someone calling another person. It is a woman with 2 more friends telling another person that she can bet she will make her work hard. The MC watches the 3 speaking rudely to the other and questions what is happening. The woman makes it clear that she allowed the other girl to join them since she heard she was a 2-color wielder, but that her fire skill is garbage. The girl apologizes. Rei stands up and thinks that he ended up seeing something very uncomfortable since he has in mind that he was also treated the same way not long ago. The woman continues being rude, telling the girl named Ichinos that she is dead weight. Rei, as soon as he hears that name, questions if the girl is really Ichinos Aya, since he remembers that she would be known as the Scarlet Queen in the future, but that currently she is still an incompetent mage. However, he thinks that he never imagined she would have been treated like that by her own group. Ichinos says that if she is kicked out of the group, she will not be able to cover her sister's medical expenses. So she shouts that she will do her best next time. The woman tells Ichinos to prove it during the raid they will have later. Otherwise, she will end up on the street. Ichinos replies that yes, and that she will do her best. Thus, they start to leave, and Rei keeps questioning if everything will be okay. After that, the MC is heading back to his house, and quite intrigued, he thinks that Ichinos will become the Scarlet Queen in a few years. But he knows that before reaching that point, it seems she went through several hardships because, as he remembers, she experienced an incident around this same time when she was seriously injured during a battle against a boss and fell into a coma for several years, until, while thinking about all this, he remembers one more thing and questions if probably that incident would not happen in the raid she was going to do with the others. He knows he is not sure about it, but it does not seem that she was normal. Thus, he concludes that it is better to hurry. After some time already inside the dungeon, Ichinos' group stands before the boss who drives his huge sword into the ground. This is the level 45 Dullahan. The woman smiles and says she had an idea, then pushes Ichinos forward and tells her to face the boss alone. Ichinos is terrified and says there is no way to defeat a Dullahan alone. The woman replies that if that is the case, then Ichinos better pack her bags. She says no and that she will try. The woman says she hopes she gives her best and asks if Ichinos will do all this for her little sister. She becomes thoughtful, but soon turns to the boss and replies that she understands. Ichinos trembles all over, but still prepares her fireball and throws it at the Dullahan. However, the attack has no effect on the creature who just stands still. Ichinos becomes very worried, seeing that her skill had no effect at all. At that moment, Dullahan jumps up and comes down, striking his attack on the ground, and due to the strong impact throws Ichinos far away. While lying down, she sees the boss coming at her, and as soon as Dullahan approaches to strike his blow, Ichinos closes her eyes and thinks that she knew she was really useless. However, someone arrives shouting while using the extreme body enhancement skill. It is the MC who appears preventing Dullahan's attack. Ichinos is very surprised while the MC exerts great force and throws Dullahan hard against a wall. Rei turns and asks if she is okay. Ichinos' group watches the MC from afar, and their leader wants to know who he is, because she knows that Dullahan is a heavy-type monster, and even so, the MC threw him away with one blow. Then she becomes frightened and really wants to know who he is. At that moment, Dullahan stands up and lets out a piercing roar. Rei thinks that this was already expected, that his blow was not enough to defeat the creature. Then he observes Dullahan and notices that his armor has a reinforcement ability, and that normal attacks will not be able to penetrate it. So he charges forward, and as soon as he dodges Dullahan's attack, he thinks that he will steal his ability and nullify it. Then he uses his skill absorption technique, but as soon as he focuses on Dullahan, he realizes that it did not work and ends up receiving a blow that throws him back. Ichinos wants to know if he is okay. Rei replies that yes, and says that he managed to block it with his sword. The MC thinks that he already understood and concludes that Dullahan's armor is merely an external part and that he will need to touch the inside of his body. The creature in turn raises his huge sword and delivers a powerful attack aimed at the MC. Rei shouts, asking Ichinos to stay back, and activates his magic barrier, blocking the creature's attack. The shockwave is so great that it throws the two girls who are with the leader far away, who in turn activates her skill and launches an ice stake. However, Dullahan counterattacks with his blow and completely destroys the ice stake. The woman cannot believe it and is hit by the attack, being thrown hard against the wall. Rei looks at the boss and questions if his ice stake really did not work. Thus, he prepares his skill synthesis and thinks that he needs one that will go beyond Dullahan's reinforcement power. Ichinos is very surprised to see that the MC is using black mana. Rei prepares his attack, as does Dullahan, but the boss attacks first, and the blow goes straight at the MC, who waits for the attack to get a little closer and immediately uses his Abyssal Flame skill, completely dissipating Dullahan's attack. And due to the powerful strength, the attack continues toward the creature, who as soon as it is hit head-on, has his armor beginning to crack, and a huge explosion happens around him. Dullahan, with not much left to do, ends up being defeated and soon drops an item as it disappears. Ichinos, very surprised, questions if the MC managed to defeat Dullahan with just a single blow, and, as she observes him, thinks that he is quite amazing. Then she calls him and thanks him for saving her life. Rei says that he is happy to see that she is fine. The MC picks up his drop and, looking at the girl, thinks that he managed to save Ichinos in the end, until the leader of the girls' group stands up and shouts, wanting to know what the hell is going on. Very apprehensive, she thinks that the boy in front of her is really strong, then gives a sinister smile and thinks that the reward should be hers. Therefore, she goes up to the two, asking them to wait, and makes it clear that the reward goes to the person who registered for the dungeon. So she asks the MC to hand over the mana stone. Ichinos asks her to wait and says that the person beside her saved everyone. Rei emphasizes that he does not mind giving her the drop, but in exchange he wants Ichinos to be part of his group, which leaves both her and the group leader confused with the sudden request. Rei smiles and, looking at Ichinos, stresses that he only wants that if she wants it. The group leader starts laughing and says that she was worried about what he was going to ask, then replies that she accepts his request. Then she puts her hand on Ichinos' shoulder and wants to know if she accepts the MC's request. She is a little hesitant, but replies that she is in his care from that moment on. The group leader quickly grabs the mana stone from the MC's hand and, while leaving, says that she never thought she would get so much money from dead weight. Rei does not like that at all, and since he knows who Ichinos will become, thinks that he can hardly wait to see the leader's face when that happens. Until Ichinos asks the MC for permission and thanks him for the invitation. He becomes embarrassed, apologizes, and explains that he ended up making her leave the group so suddenly, then wants to know if she is sure that everything is okay. She replies that she is just a burden, but ends up being surprised when she hears the MC saying that it is okay, and sees him extending his hand and saying that she will become much stronger than those who abandoned her. Ichinos wants to know if she will really get strong. Rei nods, implying yes, and then says that before going there, he had seen her at the association and ended up overhearing her whole conversation. She remembers the scene she had to go through and feels a little sad. The MC notices this and quickly apologizes, but explains that it was by coincidence, although he thinks he can help her. He says this and extends his hand once again. She is a little reluctant, but soon replies that it is okay and that she is under his care. He is happy to know this, and as soon as he takes her hand, he comments that he feels the same. Therefore, the next day they go to the entrance of a dungeon, and while stretching, Rei comments that it is time to conquer a rank B dungeon. Ichinos wants to know if by conquering the dungeon they are going into, they will be able to take the rank A exam. Rei replies that it is exactly that, but emphasizes that it is not just that. He then explains that inside the dungeon they are going into, there is a key that can make her stronger. She is intrigued about the key and thinks that as long as she gets stronger and raises her rank, she should be able to gather money for medical expenses. She then raises her head and calls the MC to move forward. Therefore, both enter the rank B Crystal Cave dungeon, and it does not take long for something to catch Ichinos' attention, who quickly points ahead and asks the MC to look, since they are facing several black wolves. Rei steps forward and asks her to leave it to him. Then Rei uses body enhancement and charges at the creatures in front of him. He lands his first blow on one of the black wolves, and with his incredible speed, keeps eliminating several very quickly. Ichinos is impressed watching the way the MC fights, and thinks that the Isoyama group she was part of was strong. But seeing the way Rei fights, she thinks he is on another level, and by observing him more closely, concludes that they are not even close to Rei. After dealing with the black wolves, they keep walking through the dungeon, and Rei turns and tells her about their objective there, and that he will give her full support. Ichino steps forward and replies that she understands. Therefore, while positioning herself, she thinks that defeating several monsters is the strategy to level up quickly, but keeps in mind that at first she can only use basic attacks. However, seeing several creatures approaching, she thinks she needs to try to change this, so she casts her fireball at the creatures that are approaching. Rei watches from a distance as she fights, and thinks that this is a test for Ichinos, but he really wants to know if she will realize her true weapon. Then, he notices some creatures approaching from behind her, and as soon as he equips his sword, he makes it clear to the monsters that he will not allow them to interfere with Ichinos. She, on the other hand, keeps fighting alone, but does not notice one of the creatures behind her and ends up being attacked. Ichinos looks around and thinks that no matter how many she defeats, they keep appearing and attacking. Then she takes a deep breath and reflects that if she keeps going at this pace, she fears her mana will run out quickly. Then something comes to her mind, and she immediately turns and sees Rei fighting some monsters. As she watches him in action, she thinks that she knows he is trying to make things easier, so she concludes that she needs to stop lamenting because she has to meet his expectations. Therefore, she prepares her fireball again and keeps eliminating several monsters whenever she can. In this way, she starts leveling up several times, until while casting her skill, she begins to notice that her mana is not running out. Rei notices this too and thinks that it was already expected since he had in mind that Ichinos was made for long battles, and that her greatest weapon is her amount of mana. At that moment, Ichinos notices a system notification and is very surprised at what it is since the system is notifying that the furnace has been unlocked. After that, it does not take long for them to reach the boss room of the Crystal Cave, and they come across the great level 52 slime. Rei steps forward and charges at the creature, and while striking his attacks, he shouts, asking Ichinos to use the skill she just unlocked. Without hesitation, she uses the furnace and her body is enveloped by an intense flame. She is very surprised to notice this and questions if it really is her power. Then she clenches her fist tightly, and Rei, watching her, thinks that the furnace is a skill that increases the firepower of her abilities in exchange for a high mana cost. Because of that, he has in mind that it is something that suits Ichinos perfectly, who in turn casts her fireball ability intensified by the furnace. And the MC is very impressed with her power and thinks that she is even more incredible since he knows that with her tremendous amount of mana combined with the furnace, with that power, he thinks that Ichinos will definitely become the Scarlet Queen. After defeating the Great Slime, Rei comments to Ichinos that she did a great job. She takes a deep breath and says that she was very surprised to begin with, then laughs and makes it clear that this is all thanks to him. She says this while the MC keeps looking at the damage she caused to the cave wall with her power. After leaving the dungeon, Ichinos comments that they finally completed the condition to participate in the Rank A exam. Rei replies yes, but thinks that finally it is time for his promotion, and that he knows he will achieve it no matter the cost. On the day of the promotion exam for Rank A, Hinata is explaining that first, they will evaluate the combat potential of each one and pair them with someone for a simulated battle. Rei thinks that he is finally at the promotion exam and knows that he needs to pass and become a Rank A mage. While walking through the agency, Rei comments to Ichinos that it is almost time for the exam. She comments that both will do their best. The MC emphasizes that first, it will be a test to evaluate the potential of each one until someone arrives saying that they never imagined that an incompetent like Ichinos would take the exam. She is startled to see who it is. It is Daemon Isoyama and her group. Ichinos immediately wants to know what she wants, but the MC steps forward and makes it clear that his friend would never lose to someone who sends another person alone to the front line. Isoyama does not like that and comments that the MC can say whatever he wants, then turns and emphasizes that unlike having someone like Ichinos, her group has the best members. Therefore, she introduces Aono Yuri and makes it clear that she is someone that neither the MC nor Ichinos will ever be able to defeat. Rei is surprised and questions if it really is Aono Yuri since he has in mind that he remembers hearing that name in his past life, and that there was an occasion where she completed a very difficult dungeon without even realizing it, and that after that, her name became known. While continuing to think that at the moment he believes her ability should still be around Rank A, she quickly approaches, calls the MC, and comments that he seems to be an interesting person. Rei is a little surprised to hear this, and Ichinos notices and immediately wants to know if the MC is finding something strange. Aoonyo, as soon as she hears the name of the MC, is intrigued and wants to know if he is Kurosaki Kai's brother because she heard that the Purple King was defeated by someone. Then, she points her finger at the MC and asks if it was him who defeated the Purple King. While Rei thinks that she knows things, Ichinos cannot believe what she just heard and asks her friend if it is true. But Aono turns saying that she does not care about that and emphasizes that it is not as if the MC would be able to defeat her. Therefore, she leaves saying that there is a rumor circulating about the Purple King and that she thinks maybe he is not even a match in the end. Rei smiles and thinks that Aono is a very intriguing person. After that, already at the training field of the Mage Association Agency, a guy comments that they will evaluate the combat potential of each one using the artificial golem at his side. He then explains that the golem in question is coated with a special stone much stronger than common stones, and that therefore everyone should give their best without fear. That said, he calls Kurosaki Rei to be the first. As soon as the MC approaches, the golem immediately enters battle mode. Rei prepares his fireball, and some people around start laughing, wanting to know if the boy is really going to use fire magic against a golem. While charging at the golem, Rei has in mind that he knows very well that any ordinary fire magic would not be able to defeat such a thing, and as soon as he dodges the golem's attack, he prepares his skill synthesis and unleashes the fire lance that hits the golem right in the head and opens a tremendous hole in it, which soon after falls hard to the ground, and the examiner shouts saying that the golem's destruction has been confirmed. The people who were laughing cannot believe what they just saw, and question if what they saw was a two-colored attack. Aono says that the MC fused fire with blue mana to increase the power of fire magic. After that, Ichinos is at the mana evaluation, and the examiner asks Ichinos to put her hands on the crystal to assess her mana quantity. Isoyama comments that she should be ashamed of herself. Ichinos, after placing her hand on the device, releases an incredible amount of power throughout her body. Isoyama and the others are left open-mouthed, not believing what they are seeing. Then, Isoyama starts thinking that Ichinos must at least be cheating because she does not think Ichinos could have that tremendous amount of mana. It does not take long for the simulated battle test to begin, and the examiner announces that they will start, thus announcing that the first battle will be between Ichinos and Isoyama. While Ichinos takes a deep breath to focus on the battle, Isoyama is thinking that she will show everyone the fraud that Ichinos is. As soon as the instructor shouts asking them to start, Isoyama wastes no time and casts her ice stake magic. Ichinos waits for the attack to get a little closer, and as soon as she prepares her fireball, she throws it towards the ice stakes, and the skills collide, and a huge explosion happens, completely shattering the ice stakes. Isoyama is shocked and comments that she never expected Ichinos to have a skill with such firepower, then wants to know what the hell is going on. However, Ichinos does not want to afford to prolong things and prepares her fireball, which makes Isoyama very scared. Then Ichinos casts her skill, but Isoyama uses her magic barrier blocking the attacks and shouts asking Ichinos not to underestimate her. While she keeps blocking the attacks, Isoyama thinks that Ichinos really is an idiot because her attack is too simple, and she thinks she will just wait for her to finish and then counterattack. However, the attacks keep coming without stopping, and Isoyama finds it strange and questions why Ichinos has not stopped attacking yet. Rei, watching his friend fight, has in mind that once Ichinos, with her massive amount of mana, starts an attack, he knows that it is not a simple magic barrier that will stop her. Therefore, Ichinos intensifies her attacks more and more, and Isoyama's magic barrier starts to suffer several cracks, and it does not take long for the barrier to be completely broken, forcing Isoyama to run so as not to be brutally hit. However, due to the impact of the explosion, some debris ends up hitting Isoyama's head hard, knocking her out. With that, the instructor shouts, announcing that the winner is Ichinos. She, in turn, is very happy to know that she actually managed to defeat Isoyama in the end. Rei goes to her and congratulates her for the great job, highlighting that it was a beautiful battle. Ichinos, all excited, comments that this is too good to be true, and while wishing him good luck, someone approaches. Rei thanks her and sees who the person he will battle is. With that, the instructor shouts, asking Kurosaki Rei and Aono Yuri to get ready. The MC comments that in the end, his simulated battle opponent will be her, because he thinks it will be very interesting. Aono points her finger at the MC and asks if there is any reason for him to be taking the exam, because she feels as if he is more prepared for this than the other participants. Hence, the reason for her question. Rei says that he has something he needs to do more than anything, so he gets serious and makes it clear that is why he cannot lose there. Aono becomes thoughtful, but soon smiles, and releasing her power, says that she is very strong and asks if the MC knew. Rei grabs his sword and replies that he knows very well, but still wants to win. Aono comments that she already expected that and that she thinks he really is an interesting guy. Therefore, the instructor shouts, asking the two to start the battle. Aono uses her skill and says she will attack first, then launches her ability at the MC, who in turn tries to defend himself by countering the strikes coming his way. While defending, he thinks that mana conversion is a rare skill that allows the user to manipulate mana freely. Then, he notices something coming from above and quickly jumps to the side to avoid being hit directly by Aono's skill. She laughs and makes it clear that he did well to dodge that attack, but Rei does not care and charges at her. She makes it clear that she cannot allow him to reach her so easily, so she launches more attacks. Rei uses his magic barrier to block the attacks and then delivers a counterattack, but she manages to dodge. The MC tries to take advantage of her being in the air and uses his skill synthesis, throwing his fire lance. Aono creates a shield with her mana conversion and blocks the MC's skill. As soon as she lands, she comments that it was close. Rei has in mind that her defense is flawless and that she is someone strong, just as expected. Ichinose, at this moment, is very apprehensive watching her friend's fierce fight. Then Aono prepares another skill and while launching it, wants to know what the MC thinks. Rei has to run to avoid being hit by the attacks and thinks that this really is a problem. Aono wants to know if Rei really thinks he will defeat her by running from side to side, then fires her skill again in his direction and shouts that it is checkmate. However, he uses extreme body enhancement and counters all the attacks coming his way. She watches him closely and realizes that he is using body enhancement, so she gets very excited and starts smiling. She then says that it is the first time she has seen someone with 3 colors of mana, but makes it clear that she can also use body enhancement. After using the skill, she creates a mana scythe and emphasizes that they will settle this once and for all. That said, She quickly advances and appears right behind the MC ready to strike, but Rei turns at the last moment and repels the blow, thinking that she is very fast. Iono does not care and starts delivering several consecutive attacks with her mana scythe, forcing the MC to defend as best he can until she strikes with more force, and the MC has to jump to the side to avoid being hit. Rei realizes that her power is really absurd, but moves very quickly close to her, grabs her arm, and she makes it clear that it was a terrible choice for him to do that. However, Iono feels something strange and becomes confused. The system notifies that her extreme body enhancement has been absorbed, so she jumps to the side realizing that her power is fading, but Rei takes advantage of the opening and advances, then lands a direct hit on her. Iono starts coughing from the strong impact of the strike, and before falling comments that in the end, the MC was hiding his power. That said, she falls to the ground, and the instructor shouts announcing that the winner of the simulated battle is Kurosaki Rei. After that, in a medical wing, Iono begins to wake up, and Rei is happy to see that she finally woke up. Iono comments that she truly lost the battle, but Rei emphasizes that he did not expect her to be someone so strong. She wants to know if she really is, because she bets he is not about to brag about the promotion. Rei becomes serious and says that he will be very honest, then wants to know what she thinks about joining his group. Iono is very surprised by the sudden invitation, and the MC says that according to the result of the simulated battle, she was also promoted to rank A, so he emphasizes that in order to conquer the most difficult dungeons, he needs her power. However, Rei is left not understanding anything when he sees Iono laughing. As soon as she stops laughing, she emphasizes that he really is an interesting guy. Therefore, she says that it is fine, and that she thinks things may become more interesting if she follows him after all. And as soon as they both take each other's hands, she makes it clear that she is under his care. Then, suddenly, a strong tremor happens. Ichinos, very frightened, wants to know if it could be an earthquake. Rei looks outside, and very scared, questions if it could be what he thinks it is. Meanwhile, Kronos, the god of time and space, is completely sealed, but he smiles and thinks that the time is finally near. Back where the MC is, as soon as the tremor stops, Ichinos wants to know if it really ended. Rei keeps thinking about the earthquake he just felt, and remembers that in his previous world, there were many earthquakes before the collapse of the Ikebukuro dungeon, and that basically he knows that at the moment they are reaching the time limit. Besides that, he has in mind that the difficulty of the Ikebukuro dungeon is unprecedented in the era he is in. Therefore, he tells the two that he has something to say to them. After telling everything he knows, Ichinos is very surprised and wants to know if he is really serious about wanting to conquer the Ikebukuro dungeon, since she knows that it is the hardest dungeon on the Japanese peninsula, and therefore wants to know if, even so, they need to conquer it with just the three of them. Aonyu wants to know if the MC is suggesting this because of the previous earthquake. He becomes serious, replies yes, and explains that he has a bad feeling about it, since there have been many reports lately about the appearance of irregular monsters, and also thinks that it seems like a prelude to something threatening. Iono makes it clear that she is fine with any situation that the MC decides to face, and also thinks that it is an interesting place to go after all. Ichinos fills herself with confidence and promises that she will try her best not to be a burden to anyone. Rei breathes relieved and then thanks the two and says that they will conquer the Ikebukuro dungeon. The next day, at the reception of the Mage Association agency, someone arrives calling Inspector Hinata and saying that they have a favor to ask. It is the MC and his group, and Rei says that they want to conquer the Ikebukuro dungeon. After that, already in front of the dungeon, Iono says that she is really excited to know that she will have to face a super difficult dungeon with a recommended level above 70. Ichinos suggests that if possible, it would be better if they could work together with other mages. Rei says that this cannot be done since they do not have any rank A mage who can be dispatched immediately. Then he emphasizes that it would be nice if someone named Oikawa were there. The MC has in mind that before his regression, Oikawa was known as the highest ranked in Japan, and that he thinks this person should be a great help at such a moment, since he has in mind that if the dungeon collapse happens again, the god of space and time, Kronos, will appear, and precisely because of that, he needs to prevent such an event. Therefore, he calls the two to go right away. But Iono raises her hand and says that before that she has a favor to ask. Then she wants to know if the MC can also call her by her first name, since she thinks him using her last name is too formal. Ichinos thinks the same and asks the MC to think about it. Then Ichino smiles and wants to know if in the end they are not all friends. Rei likes to hear that and comments that she is right. Therefore, he calls Aya and Yuri to conquer the Ikebukuro dungeon. As soon as they enter, Rei notices something ahead and sees a level 71 skull demon, which does not take long to notice their presence there. The MC, while preparing himself, thinks that it is a boss monster in other dungeons, but that there the skull demon appears as if it were other normal monsters. Then he calls Aya and Yuri. The two immediately shout that they are ready. Therefore, while the three charge at the creature, it creates a mana barrier. Rei, while using his skill synthesis, thinks that they need to destroy the mana barrier first. So he casts his fire lance and realizes that a single hit is not enough to destroy the barrier, but then shouts asking the two to act. Therefore, he jumps to the side while Yuri and Aya prepare their skills, and as soon as they clash with the skull demon's barrier, they finally manage to break it. Rei runs to take advantage of the opportunity and strikes the demon, defeating it and making it drop a mana stone. The MC is happy that they defeated the first creature of the dungeon, then goes to his friends and says that they had great timing. Yuri comments that she has been wondering this since the fight the two of them had, so she wants to know how the MC can use so many skills. He is a little surprised by the sudden question, but ends up saying that he has a skill called Skill Steal. They are a little confused and ask him to be clearer. Rei says that just by touching his opponent, he is able to steal another person's skill. Yuri remembers when they were fighting and thinks that was what happened that day. While the MC says that he already returned the skill to Yuri, Aya is impressed and questions if Rei can really do that, since she knows that although she was surprised when he mentioned the plan to conquer the Ikebukuro dungeon, now she understands better. At that moment, Rei calls the two to continue moving forward. Aya thinks that as long as Rei is there, she believes they will be fine, and that she is sure she will not be a burden to them. After that, the MC keeps defeating some creatures, as do Yuri and Aya. It does not take long for them to reach the boss room. Aya, a little apprehensive, comments that the rumble of the ground is getting louder and that she knows a boss monster is strong, but wants to know if they will really be fine. Rei says that everyone's level there went up while they were on their way to the boss, and that is why he thinks it should be possible. Aya comments that she thinks he is right, but stands still for a brief moment, thinking that she knows it is true that Rei is getting stronger after each fight and that Yuri is also getting used to fighting, and because of that, she knows that at least she needs to support them. Then suddenly something crashes hard on the ground right behind Aya. Rei and Yuri turn around scared, and something quickly goes toward Aya, who with nothing much she can do is grabbed by something and taken away from her friends who are left shouting in concern for her. What took Aya is the enormous boss of the Ikebukuro dungeon, the level 89 Reaper. The MC is very scared, thinking that he knows the boss should not be able to leave its own room, so he questions what the hell is going on. Meanwhile, in the place where Kronos is sealed, he only laughs. Yuri wants to know if the MC thinks what is happening really is something bad. He says that it is true that the situation is critical, but shouts that despite everything, they will have to save Aya no matter what happens. Meanwhile, in the domain where the god of time and space is imprisoned, he says that apparently the monsters have been released, and that he knows this is the limit of what he can do with his current power. So he hopes the MC becomes the first victim of the grand opening. Rei shouts, wanting to know if his friend is all right. Imprisoned, she tries to answer that somehow she is, but she thinks that although she can block, she cannot escape, and that she did not want to be dead weight for her friends. Rei notices that she managed to conjure a mana barrier around herself, but thinks that even for Aya, who has a great amount of mana, there is a limit, and by observing her from afar, he knows that he needs to use his abyssal flame, but thinks that Aya might get caught in the crossfire, and because of that, he has to find a way to save her. Therefore, the MC makes it clear to Yuri that he will try to draw the boss's tentacles' attention, and that she should try to save Aya in the meantime. She replies that it is fine, and emphasizes that it is not as if she had another choice. That said, the two charge at the boss, who quickly tries to strike the MC, but he manages to dodge at the last moment. Ray is frightened to realize that a normal attack from the creature has such destructive power, so he thinks that there is no way he can afford to be hit directly. After returning to the ground, something begins to happen on his back, and a tentacle bursts from the ground heading toward him. Aya is frightened, worried about Ray. The MC uses his mana hand, grabs the wall in front of him, and pulls himself to dodge the tentacle, then thinks that it was close. At that moment, Yuri comments that this amount of distraction is quite enough, so she jumps near where Aya is and strikes one of the tentacles, trying to imprison Aya with her mana scythe. However, both the MC and Yuri are surprised by something, since the boss is using a strengthening skill on one of the tentacles. With that, Yuri is forced to retreat, and as soon as the MC goes to her, he wants to know if Yuri is okay. She replies yes, but while the two face the boss, she wants to know if Ray does not think something is strange. He agrees with her and thinks that monsters with tentacles normally have low defense. However, he has never heard of one having a strengthening skill, and besides that, the creature also left its own room, and therefore he really thinks something is strange. Meanwhile, the god of time from where he is continues just observing. At that moment, the MC notices the boss preparing its next attack, and comments that unfortunately, they do not even have time to think. Then, both Ray and Yuri have to defend themselves as best they can from the boss's tentacle attacks. Aya watches this, and thinks that it is all her fault, since she knows she always relied on Ray and that he made her battle easier. Then, she hits her barrier and thinks that she needs to do something to help them, until Yuri tries to apply more force in her attacks, and ends up losing her mana scythe, and comments that she thinks things are getting really complicated. Ray starts to get worried, thinking that both of their mana is almost exhausted since they are fighting all the time. And, looking at Aya, he thinks that if everyone's mana were in perfect condition, things would be different, until he gets an idea. Then he shouts, asking Aya to use her mana fusion on them. She is a little confused, and Yuri wants to know if that skill is not useless because it consumes a large amount of mana, while they keep defending themselves from the boss's attacks. Ray has in mind that he knows it is true that mana fusion was considered useless in his previous life, but that thanks to a certain mage, the value was reversed, and the one who proved it was Aya herself. It was she who did it in his previous life. She, in turn, thinks about mana fusion, and that she never used this skill because she thought it was useless. But she knows that if Ray is asking her to use it, then she will fully believe in his words. Therefore, she wastes no more time and uses her mana fusion skill, which quickly starts going toward the MC and Yuri. She is surprised and questions if her mana really is being restored. Ray becomes excited, thinking that he knows mana fusion has an effect that shares the user's mana, being a skill that only a mage with a large amount of mana can master. But he also knows something else. Aya is impressed to know that she can share her mana with her friends, but seeing them only defending against the attacks, she knows it is still not enough, so she concludes that it must be because she is still using her barrier. Therefore, after realizing this, she quickly dispels her barrier, which draws the attention of her friends. Ray is very frightened, wanting to know why Aya dispelled the mana barrier. Then she is immediately grabbed by the boss's tentacles, but while still trying to resist, she uses her furnace skill, which quickly amplifies the powers of her mana fusion skill on her friends. Ray shouts, worried about his friend, but Aya, almost without strength, says that she will leave the rest to them, and as soon as she is completely wrapped by the boss's tentacles, Ray becomes serious, calls Yuri, and without saying another word, both charge with everything at the creature. Yuri has in mind that Aya showed such dedication, and that is why she will have to do the same, while the MC thanks his friend for granting them more strength. Therefore, the two go straight to where Aya is being held by the tentacles, and with both of their powers replenished, they easily cut through the boss's tentacles as if they were nothing. With that, Ray shouts that now they can simply forge the path they want.
Thanks for watching. I'm going to see you next video.